Okay, so welcome to this week's TOC.
Hello.
We've got a few bits on the agenda, so it's reviewing actions from last week, reviewing the outstanding PRs, and then any other business. So if we move on to actions from last week, it was on myself and Eric to do some work on the RFC, and we did manage to meet up and get that one sorted. Jan was going to draft a communication to the working group leads about the time slots for the TOC on an 8-weekly cadence. He did post a link to that one along with his apologies with having a small child in isolation, which makes working a little bit difficult. I've had a chance to have a look through that one and put my comments on there, which have already been accepted. They were only very minor things. But I think it probably makes sense to leave that one open, certainly for the rest of today, for those of you who it is morning to work through. Everyone should have access to that one. If not, please shout. Okay. Chris, did you manage your update?
Well, I didn't update Pranav, but I did do some more work on the incubator. And I, all of the repositories that are in the charter for all the working groups, I've reached out about all of those. And then there's about a dozen that I just don't know what to do with, and probably should be archived. And then I'm not actually sure what we should do with Irene. So I've got a nice spreadsheet here. I'll drop it in Slack. I wouldn't imagine most of you are interested in this, but maybe Eric, you and I can chat about this sometime soon, and you might have some insight into some of these repositories. But yeah, getting close. There's only about 50 repositories that are unarchived left in the entire incubator org. So that's pretty good progress. Once I have that done, I figure I'll go back to Pranav and give him a list of how everything looks in the Cloudfoundry org, but I figured I'd kind of get this knocked out first.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so I'll put an action item in for Chris and Eric just to run through that spreadsheet and say yay or nay to whether to archive or not. Okay. And then Eric, we got one for you to draft a new PR for working groups affected by documents changes.
Yep, done that. I think that's on our list of outstanding PRs to review in the next segment.
Okay, cool. So, okay, so if we look at some of the outstanding PRs, I'll post links in the chat. Okay. So we've got removing archive repos from CF-on-K8s working group. So we've got a couple of approvals on that one. Because it is always that difficult one when it's removing things, making sure that the right things are being removed and nothing's being abandoned. I think we're safe in this case.
While we're here, I'm going to add my approval to that as well.
Okay, cool.
That's sufficient, right?
Yep, that gives us 3. So I will click the button. Cool. So that is that one done. And then we have David, one for you, which is adding the repo for CredHub BOSH Release to the scope of the infra working group that involve you talking to some open source peeps.
Yeah, Eric and I were both working on this a little bit, trying to figure out what the Luna licensing model really is there. I dropped the ball a little bit on it, but I think we read the license, and Chris, you might be interested in this as well. The reason this never went in to the open source is we thought there's some sort of proprietary HSM module inside of inside of that BOSH release, but the license says that it's allowed for any approved, Cloudfoundry compliant distribution. So the licensing wasn't to Pivotal or VMware. It was to some generic representation of a compliant community member or vendor. So I think we could move it in. It's a little weird to have a piece of technology sitting in there that's not Apache 2. But I don't know, maybe it becomes like if nobody has an objection to it going in on the TOC side, like this is an optional feature, right? Like for HSM support. And unfortunately, like, I guess it could have been written as 2 BOSH releases, one that has the proprietary thing in it. If that's possible, you could build it pluggable in such a way where it could be written as 2 BOSH releases. It happens to be written as 1. If we want to put CredHub release in there, I don't think we're going to do the work to refactor it to be 2 different BOSH releases. So either we're going to leave it in the Pivotal VMware side of the house, but it's open source, so it's just slightly weird. Or we can move it in as long as like maybe the TOC is okay with it, and Chris and I can look at the licenses specifically and see if we have any Linux Foundation objective to it coming in. Any TOC objection to it coming in with the Luna module?
Nope. So I've captured that one as David and Eric to move CredHub release into Cloudfoundry, provided legal are all okay. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep, and I think I know the approval side on the VMware side too. So I figured out how to get it done on the VMware side. I don't anticipate a problem. I don't know how long it'll take, but I don't anticipate a problem there. So
Cool.
I guess like Chris and I talk about it, and if we both agree, then we'll begin the process.
Okay, cool. So the next one we have is 190, which is add areas for docs to existing working groups. So this, I was quite happy with this one. I think it's all okay. We've technically got enough to just push the button on this one.
I mean, I wonder if we should get an explicit approval from the leads of the other working groups that are affected by this. I mean, it's kind of implicit on the previous PR, but it'd be nice to get their sign off.
Do you want to tag them?
Yeah, I had requested their review, but I can give them a nudge.
Nudge. Cool. All right. Okay, so a nudge for review there. When we've got 189, which is a little bit of a one that's poses an interesting question and threads into the next one of 192. So I'll just post both of those. So in our first case, we have a user that doesn't exist, CF log cache CI, and is being removed from cloudfoundry.yaml, which drives the automation. And on 192, with regards to the no dry run switch over to GitHub app auth, the point is interestingly raised of the workflow will manage GitHub org membership, additional and removal of members, as well as the team membership, who will be responsible for merging PRs to the YAML file. So we've got a case where this has arisen already. So that is something that I guess we do need to figure out who is responsible for managing that user's file.
Yes. That's why I brought it up with the admins at VMware, or previously Pivotal. They are responsible for onboarding people into the org. And I don't know, since we're now more formalizing that process, I guess, makes sense to think about these things.
Yes.
Also, there will be less memberships, or I mean, there will be members, I guess, in the GitHub org, but not so much in teams anymore, I assume, because once we enforce the whole TOC structure or the working group structure, then people don't, they won't have permissions anymore, or most of the people won't have permissions anymore on the repos. And we'll have to go through pull requests for everything.
Yes, I kind of feel that it should be at working group level, really, the working group leads to manage who fits within their area, but then what's the
org
potential
membership?
Yes,
that's the thing. Like, there's a really long list of people that are all org members. And I think we have that level also, like you're contributor or something, right? Which means that you are an org member, I guess. It feels almost like you want to be self-service, but you also want there to be a check. So it's like, yeah. So one thing I could think of was like we could split out that file. It's a big file. And we could maybe have that merge two files together before applying it. So we could have like one file that has the member org or the org memberships. And then we have different code owners there, at least. That's like a technical way of at least making the maintenance burden a bit, split that a bit. But still, I don't know who should be doing it.
How do you add an org member normally? Like, isn't there some self-service way that people add org members?
For VMware people, it's like create a help now ticket or something,
Okay,
have
sure.
it escalated to the VMware admins, and then they do it.
What role do you need to become? I guess like an org admin adds org members? Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's mostly Justin and another person doing that.
Yeah. I think when I added my team, my SAP team to Cloudfoundry Incubator for these performance tests, because here the whole team is actually a committer in the projects, I had to add everybody manually as Cloudfoundry Incubator org member before I could invite them to the team. If we now transfer those repos, I don't want to know what this all means. Yeah, so a self-service would be really nice, or at least a clearly communicated role that basically everybody can get Cloudfoundry member just by applying a PR, which is already a certain hurdle, right? So that it's not just click a button, but it means you have to be able to file a PR to this project. You have discovered the project community. You have maybe read the markdown files.
Yeah.
Then there's no other additional check, right? That can be done by everybody, and we would accept everybody. And then the real assignment to working group teams, that's then a different thing where all these rules apply. At least it would be a possible process that could work out. I don't know if there are any disadvantages in having the world in the Cloudfoundry org as members.
So that could mean we make some bots that like just or like we set up GitHub actions to verify the sanity or do a sanity check on that file, and then just merge it, basically auto merge.
What's the abuse scope for that? Is the first thing that instantly leaps into my head.
Yeah, I mean, I was just checking the rules that we have laid out for the community. And I mean, I think someone might have already mentioned this, but that does like that GitHub org membership does correspond to that contributor level of role. So, I mean, we don't want it to be a high barrier to entry, but we want there to be some barrier of entry showing actual meaningful participation in the community to become a member of the org itself.
Then it
So it seems like there should be some sort of check. I mean, we could probably be pretty permissive about maybe even anyone who's certainly a working group lead or maybe an approver could add people to the list. And then like that allows many avenues to add people to the org, especially if we're talking about something that we could automate permission checks for with like a code owner's file. Seems like removal is then the other case. That might be something that we would verify as the TOC just to do like a final check. Is, does this person actually want to be removed, or, is there some community-wide reason why we're removing them from the organization? I mean, I could see a violation of code of conduct being one of those cases where we would say like, okay, well, definitely this person is removed from the org because they've done something that doesn't align to our values.
And then there's the inactive. What do you do there as well as a case?
I mean, I think we can be pretty lenient about those kinds of things. Like I've definitely seen that in other GitHub orgs where unless someone explicitly wants to be removed from the organization and they request it themselves, then we'll keep them there in case they come back soon.
Should we make this an RFC?
Could be a good way to exercise the proposed system.
I mean, I think it makes sense for it to be available for comment on by a wider group of people. Okay. Cool. So I'm happy to have a bit of a thunk and sketch something out on a branch for that as an RFC. I may well tag you if that's okay, Ruben, on that one for your thoughts.
Didn't catch that last bit. Did you?
I was going to have a go at a draft, and I may well tag you for your thoughts on it.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. I will take that as an action. And the last PR to review is actually the RFC process. I believe that Eric, you and David took it for a test ride.
Oh, do we have this one about the switching to GitHub app auth?
Yes, that is a good point because that was conflated with that one. So yeah. With regards to switching over from dry run to GitHub app auth, I couldn't see any problem with that personally.
I mean, that was just I wanted to have like a one PR to make it go live. Like it's currently running in dry run mode. Yeah, and we should go through that RFC thing before we go live. GitHub auth was just the technical implementation that I found that makes most sense because then we don't need a bot user. So we don't have to share credentials somehow. We can all manage the GitHub auth app through, or I mean, at least the admins can.
The use of GitHub secrets. Where are you going to put the private key?
It's in GitHub secrets.
Ooh, okay. All right.
It's already there.
Oh, I see. You're you're writing it out. I was like, how are you possibly? How did it end up in this file called private key? But echo.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
Okay. So you think that should wait on the RFC? All right, cool.
Yeah. Once that's approved, we can merge this one and then it goes live basically. But if we wait too long, there will be a big diff between the state file again and the world. Yes. And it takes, I don't know, on my in my home a few hours to get that file downloaded again or generated with poor internet.
Okay. So on the RFC process side, 174, how did you find it? It seems like it went okay.
Yeah. What did we run into trouble? Did we run into trouble on anything, Eric?
Yeah, I think there was an issue embedding images across branches. Like we added an image to the branch and made a
GitHub just won't
relative
render
reference
it.
to, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. If you do like a relative path,
Mhm.
GitHub's like, oh, you mean the main branch? And we're like, no, we mean the branch that we're on. It's a relative path after all. And it's like, you probably want the main branch. So once it gets merged, it will work. So I'm not really worried. It's just a slightly sad thing about
Damn you,
relative
GitHub.
paths.
Damn you,
Yeah,
GitHub.
exactly. Probably there's probably some attack vector they're trying to mitigate by saying like won't render an image until it's been merged.
Okay. But at least, well, you can at least see it on the branch, and it does make sense. That's just a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of unfortunate because that's when you want people to be reading it with the explanatory details that those images presumably would provide.
Yeah.
So it may be worth seeing if there's a way to work around that, but we hadn't done that yet.
Okay. So with that one, and myself, Eric, and David have said yay on that. Shall we push the button?
Has everyone else approved it?
No, so Stephan is yet to approve it, and so is Jam.
Yep. It's a lot of text. I would have to read it one more if you want an approval, but I can do it directly after the meeting and then you're good to go. I think I won't.
Yeah, I mean,
really feedback, I would have to try out one, but that's,
yeah.
and I doubt that I find something wrong. Definitely nothing on grammar and orthography also. Yeah, so.
All right,
I mean,
cool.
I think unless we also get a synchronous approval from Jan, then we really should leave it open until this coming Friday to make it a week without any dissenting comments.
All right.
Give him time to respond in case there is anything.
Okay, cool. That's no problem. And that takes us to the end of the outstanding PRs that fall within our world. So has anyone got any other business at this particular point? I did say, David, that you have opened your RFC and it's in draft stage at the moment.
Uh-oh. What am I supposed to do?
Well, it's up to you to start prodding people to say yay or nay, and then when you've solved your, any discussion around there, to then open it up for the period of final comment.
Got it. And so I'm sort of, as the author of the PR, responsible for deciding when to move it into its approval. Yeah, totally. I guess in theory, I want to wait for the RFC process to be approved and then move it into. I don't think we're going to wait like a lot longer. I think Benjamin has feedback about it. A couple other folks had feedback on the document. I guess the polite thing to do would be to tag them and say, hey, this is where we want you to give feedback now. Kind of started the work. We're probably going to go ahead.
Cool.
So I'd like to move it into final approval in the next week. So that, yeah, by next time, it'll be hopefully in its last week of approval.
Okay. Has anyone got anything else for this week?
Yeah, I'm working on a PR for where I'm refactoring all the working group definitions to be like have embedded YAML because I want them to be machine parsable, because so basically we now have like some markdown list, and I'm just reformatting that as a YAML snippet. The idea there is that we can later use that when we have the GitHub org automation, right? We could generate group definitions based on those files. I've experimented with like maybe parsing the markdown and then generating a list, but I don't know. It felt like you always get into the situation where you get something out of sync, right? So I thought, why not just have YAML embedded in the markdown, because it's readable for humans. It's maybe even denser than what it currently is. Yeah, that's coming. I had hoped to finish it before this call, but it's not yet finished. It's quite a lot of work to standardize all that.
Okay. Cool. Anything else for this week? Okay. So I'll just run through the action items then. So Chris and Eric to verify the repos on the spreadsheet, whether to archive or not. David and Eric to move the CredHub release into the Cloudfoundry, provided legal are all okay. Eric to nudge on the docs PR for review by the people tagged in it. Me to draft an RFC for adding users to the GitHub org. And TOC review the communication to working group leads about time slots for the TOC on an 8-weekly cadence. It'd be nice if we could do the last one async with the aim to try and get it sent out this week. And one thought on that one, have we got a convenient mailing list group of working group leads to which to send this?
I think it's a TOC Slack channel, right? Where everything aggregates in. Then there are Slack channels per working group, more or less. That's it.
Yeah, we don't have a Slack alias either, or a Slack group. That would be useful. We could like at working group leads or something.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. Working group leads could have their own channel, but this is kind of an ask that we are making of them. But I guess popping into their channel and making that ask would be reasonable if that channel existed. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, what's the best way of communication? And I was thinking a combination probably of Slack plus email. Thinking where, you know, Slack kind of exists, you know, if it exists already, then great. If it doesn't, then it's a little bit more difficult.
I mean, not that I want to be in the situation where we have a RFC process hammer and so everything looks like a nail. But is this also something that we should codify as via an RFC as process for working groups with the TOC? Because I mean, I haven't had a chance to read over Jan's draft in detail, but
yeah, I think ultimately, yes, we should, but I don't think we're quite at that stage yet.
We just want to have that initial discussion with the leads of the current working groups. Okay. Well, if this is just a one-off for the current set of leads, then I bet we can, like, there's not that many people, we can wrestle up the appropriate communication channels.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a PR with machine readable working group files. So I mean, you can just script your way around this.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, cool. All right. Well, if no one has anything else for this week, then I suggest we gain a few minutes back. Cool.
I
All
just
right.
finished the PR, but I don't expect people need some time to review it.
Yeah, I need a bit of time to review that one. Cool. All right. Thank you very much, all, and have a wonderful week.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.